Hey everyone, welcome back to another roundtable discussion. My name is Adam, I'm the editor-in-chief of The Fifth Person, and in this discussion we're going to talk about Airbnb's upcoming IPO and whether we should have a look at that. So with me, once again, I have Rusmin.
Hello everyone.
Victor.
Hi everyone.
And Kenny.
Hi.
So we're all from The Fifth Person and we want to talk about Airbnb's IPO right now. Alright, so we've recently heard news about the upcoming IPO. We haven't had an exact date to when Airbnb is going to list, but we expect this is going to be somewhere in December. So as we know, Airbnb is one of the biggest travel websites out there where you can book, alternative accommodations for your holiday. Alright, so we're going to explore whether this IPO is something we should have a look at. But before we go into all those things, let's just have a look at Airbnb's business model to just give you a brief overview of how they make money. Alright, so tell us more about a bit about Airbnb's business model.
So Airbnb business model is pretty straightforward, right? They work with landlords, basically people who own the whole property, and they can actually lease out a room within their property or just the whole property, their whole house. And they make money from both sides, right? Both from the guests when they're booking, they'll charge anywhere between 6 to 12%. It depends on the property, the type of property that they're booking. And on the landlord side, they get to charge a fixed fee of 3%. So in total, a percentage of gross booking value, which is the amount that they book for, that will be 12.6%. That's basically
okay. So what you're saying is that I think everyone's quite familiar with Airbnb themselves, right? I think a lot of us have used the website before. We kind of know how to book, homes using Airbnb. But we want to understand where they get the cuts from, where Airbnb makes the profit from. So what you're saying is they make it from the host and from the traveler as well, the guest as well.
So according to them, they have about 4 million hosts on their platform, and they have about close to 54 million guests that actually stay in those property that is being hosted by their host, and in the year of 2019, right? So they booked about 327 million total night stay with Airbnb, which is one of the big players there when it comes to short-term rental stays.
So I also have another interesting statistic. So Airbnb has a total of 7.4 million listings, right? And that in total is more than Marriott, Hilton, Intercontinental, Wyndham, and Hyatt combined. In total, they only have about 4.3 million rooms.
But that's the thing about platforms, right? They kind of aggregate all the different supply that you have out there in the market. There's no way an individual hotel or hotel chain can fight with that. It's just a different business model altogether. And I think that's one of the things about the beauty of a platform model like Airbnb.
Yeah, but to put into more perspective about the listing, right? 5.6 million of this whole listing is actually more of an active user. That means people actually book the house or the home or the apartment that they book, right?
In the year, right?
In the year, right?
So these are the number of like homes and apartments out there on the Airbnb website, 5.4 million at this point. So that is a lot of homes. There's there's a huge supply. So I think that's one of the attractions of travel platform like that. You have a lot of choices wherever you are in the world. You can always find something that suits your fancy.
And some of the homes really look
really nice, really nice. And I think sometimes we just don't want to stay in a hotel. It just feels a bit clinical. You want something more cozy, more authentic.
You can even rent a castle.
Oh yeah,
igloos. If you ever go to
castle is interesting.
So it's quite an amazing platform where besides typical traditional route that I used to go, I usually used to just booking. I go there. And again, they are owned by Booking. Usually you will tend to book hotels, right? But because of the Airbnb, the short-term rental, you can actually convert your house, and then you, as a host, you earn additional income from there. Okay, so they kind of disrupt the entire industry. As a consumer myself, I do travel a lot, so I find Airbnb does provide quite a good value when it comes to choices of selection of properties that I want to stay whenever I go to certain countries. So they give me more alternative and choices, right? So which is some of them sometimes they are much more valuable as compared to hotel actually.
But as you know, this is in the travel industry. And COVID-19 has basically decimated this industry for 2020 anyway, right? So I think Airbnb obviously has been hit by the pandemic, and I think the CEO has said they've built this business for 12 years and they almost lost everything in 6 weeks. So I think a lot of people who are watching this want to know whether Airbnb, how has COVID-19 affected their business, and have they turned it around, and what they're doing to like mitigate the impact.
Yeah, so I think if you look at this year result, I think one of the very important metrics when you're looking at Airbnb is to look at this gross booking value. Okay, so this basically represents the total booking value that the customer place on them. Let's say if you rent an apartment for $1,000, that will be counted as gross booking value. Okay, so the total number in the quarter 2 of this year 2020, I think it has dropped to around 3.2 billion as compared to last year, a year ago it was around 9.8 billion. There was a drop about 70%. Okay, so this is what happens when a pandemic hits and the whole country went into the lockdown.
The whole world actually.
The whole world actually.
Yeah.
So it kind of affected the entire travel industry, and Airbnb is one of the victims that actually was affected very badly. And thankfully, as lockdown continued to ease around the world, despite there's still resurgence of cases over there, I mean in the US and the Europe, so far the quarter 3 in terms of gross booking value, it has since recovered from 3.2 billion to about 8 billion. But on a year-to-year basis, this is still down about 20%. Okay, so the travel industry still have not really fully recovered, mainly because a lot of us still have not been vaccinated. Although the news has it, we have vaccine, but it still have not rolled out commercially yet.
So there are basically two things that are driving this. First is basically domestic travel, because those countries that open up, maybe in the US, they actually travel locally, and some people are more willing to stay in Airbnb than being in a hotel, because it's not as dense as the hotel. Because when you go to the lobby, if everyone is going to the hotel, you will have to interact with a lot of people,
and there'll be more like regulations and checks and all that, whereas if you have your own home, it's kind of more private, right? You can just go in and that's it. That's your home, and that's going to be your home.
Yes, and
stay.
There's also this trend where people actually move to a less densely populated area to stay for the long run. So it's for them, they just think that it's safer. Yeah.
All right. So I think domestic travel and the fact that hotels will be still a more risky place to live.
So because of that, I think financially, Airbnb in the quarter 2 they reported a drop of 72% in terms of revenue. Their losses doubled year on year.
So that's the peak of the pandemic.
Peak of the pandemic.
When the business basically dropped 70%. And it has since recovered to, it's a drop of about 20%.
Quarter 3, if you look at the revenue, it dropped about 18%. I mean, but it was a profitable year for them, mainly because they do a lot of cost cutting, right? So in order to save themselves from this pandemic, COVID-19, at the early stage, I think they did a lot of initiatives like, cutting down the marketing costs. And then they also laid off quarter of their total staff, about 1,800 people. They're actually being laid off. And the rest who stay in the company, they probably had to do a pay cut as well, right?
So I think the founder actually said that line that they wiped them out in the 6th week. I think because they were assuming that if quarter 2 continue to maintain, right, definitely it will definitely hurt them, because when the pandemic hit them, they actually refunded a lot of their hosts and their guests, and that cost about $1.25 billion. And if you look at their balance sheet, they got no debt, but they have about $3 billion in cash. So you minus off about 1.25, is close to about, rounding up to about 1.8 billion. So if you assume that the pandemic moving forward keep going with the expense that they have running forward, right, then the cash will start bleeding. Right, so I think that was the worst case scenario that the founder actually mentioned at that point of time. But as we can see that the COVID-19 have already recovered, there's domestic travels, and I think it's not as bad as what a lot of people think. That's why I think probably they choose this time to actually IPO, And they also actually, to solve that issue, they actually raised debt. They raised a $2 billion debt from institutions, and of course the debt is used to actually repay all these refunds that they're going to give out, and also all the retrenchment to the staff. Actually, they paid very well to their staff and make sure that they actually survive, during this COVID time. And of course, the leftover cash is to help them to survive. But of course, you also need to take note that the debt, right, the first 1 billion, right, is on about 9% effective interest rate. On the second 1 billion is about 15.1% effective interest rate. So that's a very, very high cost of the debt.
Wow, okay, that's actually really, really high. I'm used to like 2% for my mortgage loan. So 15% is actually really high. But I think they have no choice. Because if you don't have any liquidity, then obviously the
gonna
company
pay
is going to
higher,
fold out,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the banks will obviously charge you higher interest rate if your balance sheet is not as strong. But this is something they needed to do. They needed to shore up cash to make sure that they could last the pandemic and emerge out of it still intact. And then, of course, when people start traveling and staying again, they should be back to normal. So as of this point, could we say that Airbnb has gone through possibly the worst of the pandemic, and they're in pretty good position right now?
Yeah, I would think so, because 2020 will be probably going to be the worst year for them in terms of revenue. I mean, the losses, they've been losing money, so I don't see that is one of the worst.
But to what I see is actually when they actually pay back or not pay back, actually they help the host by giving them the 25%, which is the 250 million. I think they did the right thing, because they have always been mentioning about their business. They are in a system of trust, getting stranger to trust another stranger, and Airbnb is built on this word called trust. So by doing that, right, all these hosts, right, will be very grateful to them, and it's more of them being very congruent with what they actually are portraying out. So if they don't give the host, right, probably after the pandemic, probably these people they'll lose all these customers and all this.
There'll be a draw listing.
Yeah, so I think they did the right thing, and as much as it hurt their company, but it shows that they keep up to their promise.
Yeah. So what you're saying, when the pandemic hit, people cancelled their bookings, they refunded the guests, and they still paid out 25% of what they were supposed to be paid. As bookings to the host. As goodwill to the host, that we're going to give you some just to make sure that you get something. So I think that's actually really, really good.
And in fact, it works because there's no change in terms of listing number as of Q3, right? So I mean, one thing about this kind of platform is that if your listing starts to drop dramatically, the choices of hotel selection, or rather the property selection, will become lower, and then that will kind of like less enticing for people to come to your platform.
Okay. So I think they have been wanting to IPO for actually I think a year. I think last year there was a Airbnb IPO that was mooted, but of course COVID-19 just basically changed their plans. But now I think with the news of the vaccine, things are looking up. They've decided to go ahead with it. So they have released the prospectus. It's pretty thick,
447 pages.
447. So we went through the prospectus ourselves, and anything interesting that you want to highlight to people watching this at this point? Okay,
so I want to highlight a bit about the management thing, right? Is I was reading, then I was even asking Adam, did I read wrongly?
Okay, which
part? So the part about the compensation of the founder. So that they have about 3 founders, but the main one is actually the Brian Chesky. So what happened is during this pandemic, right, he actually reduced his salary to 0. In 2019, I realized about his salary is very interesting. Is because his salary excluding shares, he don't have any shares, only base salary is about 420,000. Right, but when he's CFO, including of shares is about 19 million. But if you exclude the shares, it's 2 million on the base salary. So his pay is actually literally less than his CFO. And I always heard that people working at Airbnb, that he's one of the most hardworking person in Airbnb. That's one interesting thing. And because of this pandemic, he's getting $0. Okay. And also in the prospectus, they further emphasize that when the IPO happened, right, his salary going to reduce from base salary of 110,000, right, all the way to $1. Okay. And on top of that, right, because of his 10 years working with Airbnb, and the board management think that he worked very hard, right, they awarded him a multi-year 12 million RSU, restricted share units. Okay, and this restricted share units, right, is worth about 120 million. Okay, and it's require him, right, to hit certain price target, right, that can unlock these share units. But the most interesting part about this share unit is, right, in the years where he actually hits the target and the share unit is being exercised, right, he do not want to take the share unit. He want to donate everything, the net proceeds, right, to the community, back to Airbnb, the philanthropy and the charity costs. So basically, when he IPO, he didn't really earn anything.
He doesn't want to make money.
He doesn't want to make
money. I'm sure he's making money through his shares and his ownership in the company. But I think that's a very enlightened way of running a company. Because he already knows that he's going to get his wealth is going to just grow
Yep.
the moment the IPO happens.
Yeah.
Right?
He owns 15% of Airbnb before the IPO.
That's a pretty good chunk of the company.
Yeah.
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 But one thing I also want to bring out, this is a good thing because it's really doing for the community. That's what a lot of the tech companies see founders they did. Okay, but I need to be very clear right here. They are not doing things that are wrong. They are doing things that are good. But I feel that sometimes there must be a fine balance, right? You cannot be too much of charity. Then eventually the business cannot survive. Right. So at this point of time, it's still not so bad, but I feel that sometimes you have to sort of like Jeff Bezos. He's very obsessed with the customer at Amazon, so he spent a lot to bring down the price for the customer. But yet he's also very street smart in running a business.
Jeff Bezos seems like a cutthroat CEO. I mean, he's very all for the customer, but the way he just kind of just takes over the market. He's just ruthless about it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a straight up businessman.
So, but I feel there still must be a fine balance, lah.
But I think so. What you're saying, based on the prospectus, reading it and all that, you get the impression that the founders of Airbnb are actually very generous.
Yes,
people.
correct.
They don't really take a high salary, and
they pay their staff well.
They pay their staff well. Okay, so and then they were very generous with the hosts as well, and they refunded the guests. So I think they kind of do things the right way. And what you're saying is that the CEO, Brian Chesky, he's not even taking his RSUs. He's going to donate that to charity when he receives them along the way.
Yeah, correct. So because I have friends who work in Airbnb, and he was telling me the ex-Airbnb employee, he was saying that the founder is actually a very nice guy, get the job done, caring for the community. It's all about, in his mind, it's all about the community.
So you actually know you have a friend who has worked there before.
Yes, correct.
And he's shared that experience with you.
Yeah, correct.
So it seems like the management seems like a good bunch.
Yep.
And I'm sure the board of directors will steer them in the right way just to make sure that the company also makes money. And it's still gonna be. The business I think will do well as long as they run a tight ship.
Actually, if you look at their quarterly adjusted EBITDA, which is a number where I think a lot of companies are using nowadays, earning before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So they do have this number. Interestingly, you will notice that every year they only make money on the quarter 3, right? So 2017 they make money 200 million. And then 2018 they made about 360 million on quarter 3, and the rest of the quarters are mostly loss making all the way until 2020. Okay, so quarter 3, why they make money? The only time where they make money is because of the summer holiday, right? Both in the US, right, which is one of the biggest market over there. Okay, so this is one of the numbers that I thought is quite interesting because this is a business that it seems like very cyclical.
Or seasonal.
Very
seasonal.
Seasonal within the year. You will still be captured everything.
Yeah. So they are lucky that COVID didn't happen until quarter 3.
It didn't go into quarter 3. It was in quarter 2 that was the worst hit.
So if they ever go to quarter 3, probably they really wipe them out,
Okay. Yeah, but so you're pointing out that they're actually unprofitable 3 quarters out of the year.
Most of the time.
Quarter 3 is the only quarter that they actually make a profit. All right. So actually, that is would that be a worry for investors if it's?
Actually, I think it's very common when you see Booking.com, Expedia, and it's just more like a travel is seasonal, right? There's peak times where they travel, but it's all about how the travel business like that manage their costs, which is more important. So then it's very important that they manage their risk and not invest too much in growing, and then when revenue will collapse or things slow down, they're still able to manage
But I have to point out that Booking is profitable every quarter instead of just quarter 3. But Booking, of course, is a bigger company. Booking is another travel agent, online travel agent, that also does hotels and alternative accommodations, which is what Airbnb does. So is there anything else in the prospectus that readers may, or what
I think you need to take note about is that if you look at the revenue growth between 2015 to 2019, right, they grow at a compound annual growth rate of 51.2%. Right. So but the recent 2018-2019, their growth actually slowed down to about 31.6%. But even though the 2018-2019, right, their growth slowed down by to 31.6%. But if you look at expense growth, the expenses, right, 2018-2019, right, because they slowed down 31.6%. And you can see that the expense in 2019 itself, right, actually increased by 46%, way higher than the revenue growth. And that's why you can see that from 2015 to 2019, actually you can notice their losses is getting lesser and lesser. But suddenly in 2019, they just spike up a lot, right? Because they spend a lot of their cash, right, investing in a lot of the operation and support, investing in a lot of the product development. So when I go to the prospectus and look deeper, what is this product development is actually technology. They try to improve the system, improve the technology, and trying all sorts of different things that can see whether can complement into the Airbnb. Because if they just do purely this, probably that they want to make it more attractive, so they have to put in a lot of other services inside. For instance, throughout the years, they actually introduce Airbnb experience, so the host actually can do sort of like a tour, right? So this is all go under product development,
Right. I think they wanted to be a super app, where you go to Airbnb, you can do your booking for your ground transport, and then once you reach the place, the host can bring you for some tours, or maybe some cooking experiences, all kind of stuff, right? So they kind of want to be this super app, but so far it hasn't worked very well for them. Yeah, especially when the pandemic hit, they kind of like change their focus back into their core business, which is the short-term rental, where they are targeting for those people who kind of want to do staycation or domestic travel. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to tell you is that if in the event that the COVID is over, then you can maybe expect, or high probability can expect them to continue to spend back their expenses to test on different things, and all this will eat up to their revenue, because like I showed you already, the revenue is growing at 51%, the expenses is growing at 50%, right?
But it's still roughly in line. It's not too far out. But we should expect, as revenue increases, they would have to spend more. I mean, they have to spend more in terms of human resource. Because this is still you need customer service for a business like that. It's not just pure technology. But I think we also want to have a look at the risks that Airbnb could face, because it's not just all peaches and creams, or it's always a blue sky scenario. What are the things that we need to look out for when it comes to risk for Airbnb?
I think first and foremost is because all the hotels are actually lobbying to limit. It's almost like Uber, where you have the regular taxis that work very hard to get a license, and then you suddenly have this sharing economy where anybody can just become a driver and drive, right? And there are risks. So it is similar with what's happening with Airbnb, and of course they want to limit the short-term stay or certain regulations, and also of course a lot of people who live within the area, sometimes they will bunch together and they will try to go to the government and say like, how can you and try to limit the short-term stay, because the thing is, a lot of people that comes into that neighborhood to stay, usually they are very short-term in nature, and sometimes they want to party, and then it could raise up issue with securities, right? All these people, you do not know, these strangers, whether it's safe or whether they will enter your house and steal your stuff, and whether they will take care of the property at the same time, because they definitely pay some sort of property maintenance fee on a monthly basis, right? So they don't want to see strangers walking in and out of the places. So that's basically one of the issues, and of course they have to deal with dispute also, and they have to invest a lot of money, because when all these hosts, they actually lease their properties, they have to send people down to check their whether they say who they say they are, and whether they really own the property, and so on and so forth. So safety is very important, because when it comes to Airbnb, trust is the most utmost.
You don't want to go into a psycho's home and then you never come out. It's like, oh man. But that's a real risk. I think that was one of the first things that people asked when Airbnb started, or when it first started. How can you trust a stranger? And live in a stranger's house? But they managed to create this phenomenon where people can trust people and stay in their homes and all that.
They have this super host program where if you are someone who's trying to book a place to stay in Airbnb, you can look for super hosts. Usually those are the hosts that have hosted many guests before, and they are very good in terms of service, they are trustworthy, and they respond really very fast. So that's one program that has worked very well. And the other one, I mean, as a consumer myself, when I go to Airbnb, usually I will look for those hosts that has a lot of review, right? So even after I might stay, I will tend to leave a review, and the host can leave a review for me as well. So they kind of like can choose each other, and then you kind of leave a track record of yourself, how you behave along the way, right?
So probably if you got a very bad review, then probably you cannot rent
any. Review guests as well. You got to be a good guest.
So they have, I think they have a long passed through the stage of trust. But now I think what the biggest issue that they have to deal with is, of course, the regulation. Right? A lot of cities, some cities that they just entered or they have entered a few years ago, they still not developed yet, and some already, like countries like Singapore, they're a lot more mature, so they kind of like regulating the short-term stay, because again, like what Kenny said, a lot of residents living in the same, for example, same private residential project, and they may not be happy. You suddenly your neighbor changes every day, and you don't know who's going to become your neighbor. They make noises, so they are not really welcome here. So the government kind of like want to regulate them there in a way that you need to be able to lease out for at least 3 months. If not, it is kind of like illegal.
So that's for in
Singapore,
right?
Singapore,
3 months, right?
yeah.
But there's still people doing it.
You can go and check Airbnb, you can still find.
I look at the Airbnb listing in Singapore. Surprisingly, there's listing over there, but
it is illegal.
Maybe they at least ask for 3 months, But I think regulations will be the main issue, because Uber faced that when they were expanding. And I think one of the things that I remember reading about was that you get these landlords buying up properties. They're actually meant for families to stay. But because it's more profitable to do Airbnb than to lease it out to a family, you get these property prices keep rising because people want to buy out these properties to lease them on Airbnb, and that creates kind of like a vacuum in the city where families don't have a place to stay, and that kind of like destroys the neighborhood in certain areas of the city, and that's really bad for the local city economy. So regulators are really looking into that, because if that gets out of control, then the city is worse off for it as well. So
certain cities are more mature in the way that like London, they kind of like are okay with the short-term stay, but they kind of limit them in a way that not more than 90 nights per year, right? And Paris is about 120 nights a year. San Francisco is about 90 nights. So it's kind of like they can still list it. It's just that the regulator want to control the supply, so that they don't just push up the property prices in that certain area.
I think probably rental prices also might go up because there's a lot of people doing rent to rent. So then they rent the place and then jack up the price, the daily price, and they take the risk. So they make the difference between.
So they don't actually own the property.
They
don't rent it out, and then they rent it out to Airbnb.
Yes, pretty much. So you lease out for 1 whole year, but you take the risk yourself to rent out on Airbnb at a higher price. So then you kind of like
so that raises rents in wherever this is happening. So again, that's not good. If you prices real people and families that want to stay there, that prices people out, and that's not always a good thing, right?
Airbnb did address this issue when it comes to regulation on their prospectus, and so far I think the good news is that they are not reliant on any of the single cities. I mean, none of their 100,000 over cities account more than 2.5% of their revenue. Okay, so in a way that they are very diversified around the world. It's a global platform, right? You have a global demand, global supply of properties that people are coming to them and then list there are places over there for lease. So regulation, I think over time they are kind of like able to navigate. It's just that it may slow down their growth over time.
So there's one thing that investors need to look out for. The other one is obviously going to be competition, because I use Airbnb, but I also use Booking. Booking.com. That's one of my favorite websites to go to if I want to book a place to stay, whether it's a hotel or a home. So what do you think about Booking? How are they going to compete with Airbnb?
I remember started using Airbnb as early as 2016, right? So I like Airbnb because they kind of like give me an alternative besides hotel. So last time, 2016, I don't see Booking doing alternative accommodation. So I made a lot of booking through Airbnb, especially during my stay in Omaha when I went to attend Warren Buffett AGM. I still remember that I wanted to live like a Warren Buffett. So I kind of booked
He doesn't have a billionaire lifestyle, just so you know.
So it's a very simple lifestyle. So I went to look at Airbnb near his place, which is about a couple of minutes walk, and then I rent a space over there. It was quite reasonable in terms of pricing, and it's very comfortable, right? The host also get to talk to me, I get to know the host, so I kind of live like a local over there. It's an experience that I'm getting that I won't be able to get if I were to stay in the hotel. Right. So that was in 2016. But as time goes by, when I started to look for accommodation whenever I travel with my family, I realized that Booking also started to have alternative accommodation like Airbnb, and their prices are a lot more attractive, and they also have more varieties of listing where I can choose, and they also have the reward program. So if I look at my past 4 years like just started from 2016 to 2020. I mean, I didn't really travel that much because of the COVID-19. 2019, last 2 years actually I have shifted to Booking instead of Airbnb. Yeah, so it's kind of like quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's quite a threat to them, you know.
Yeah, I think because Booking, I remember, I think Airbnb was the original disruptor, right? No one used to like rent houses, but then the moment they proved that there was this market for that, Booking, Expedia, they all started doing alternative accommodations on their own listings as well. And then I also kind of like just go to Booking first because I have a selection of both hotels and alternative accommodations because Airbnb doesn't have hotels. You know, so I just kind of see everything. And then maybe if I want to have a look at a home, I may have a look at Airbnb and Booking. So Booking, I think Airbnb is still number one in terms of alternative accommodations listings, right? They have 5.4 million active.
Yeah, correct. But I think the sector that they're in, right, does attract competition because if you look at how Airbnb is posting, you know, their serviceable market is 1.5 trillion.
Okay.
Right. So that's the potential revenue that they can make, you know, 1.5 trillion, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, just to give you perspective, their revenue as of 2019 is about 4.8 billion.
Long way to go.
So
there's a lot of growth.
of course, definitely they won't get the whole pie of the thing, right? But right now they are probably 0.4%. So that is the serviceable market that they can be in. But then that is also the serviceable market that Booking can be in. Right. So to hit 1 trillion is crazy, man, in revenue. Like,
honestly, I don't know how they come up with the number.
It's very optimistic, I would say, because I just now we was talking with Adam, and Adam was saying that, you know, there's no $1 trillion
at the moment, right? We don't have a trillion revenue company yet. But
even Apple is about 250 billion
a year revenue.
That's how your IPO price will triple. But actually, like thinking about this, right? What will happen is basically you have multiple platforms. What happen? It will be almost like Uber and Grab. You know, there will be dual listings, multiple listings. So there will be no loyalty in terms of whether you're Airbnb or not. But another thing that I think about is, of course, the details of customer service, because when it comes to Airbnb, they have customer service handling disputes between the landlord and the tenant, and they decide what is the right way to manage. And at the same time, when you do alternative listings, you have to provide insurance as well. So Airbnb does provide that. So that's the thing between having an Amazon and a smaller retail that's more specialized. The only difference is they have that level of knowledge and the detailed customer service experience that you get when you cannot go. Like, so that's why for Booking, in order for them to catch up, they really have to invest and grow that segment.
I actually think Booking is doing pretty well in this area because they also deal with different markets and different countries, you know, in Europe, because it's quite fragmented, and they do hotels and all that. And they're actually number 2 when it comes to alternative accommodations in the world. So they actually caught up quite a bit. I mean, they were far behind Airbnb. Airbnb was like the first mover and all that. But they've really caught up, and you know, I think as a business it's a bit more complete because they also do flights, they do hotels, a lot of other things. Where Airbnb is just kind of just focused on alternative accommodations, which is no longer actually exclusive at this point. You know?
But I think we should be honest with ourselves when we look at the Airbnb listing, or maybe the Booking listing of alternative homes, right? Are we really looking at the service that the host give us, or are we looking at the price and the beautiful home that we're going to go, right? So for me, is every time I look, I say, oh, this home is beautiful. Wow, the price is cheaper than hotel. I'll just take it. I don't bother about the service, because most of the time, I think Rusmin also shared, you don't see your host.
You don't really get to see your host.
I haven't seen my host before or any of my Airbnb, but I think some people, it matters to them that they have a host that they, I don't know, they can interact with, show them around. So maybe Airbnb does that better.
So I let you guys on a secret. So basically they have this program where they invest a lot in product and development, all these things, right? Where they will teach the host how to arrange the furniture, the color matching, and how they should take picture from certain angle to look nice.
I've seen a Netflix show on that where they basically like spruce up the house to make it Airbnb.
So it looks very Airbnb. After that, you hand it off to their team. Their team will type out the marketing description for you. So it's very easy for you to sit down.
So I think Booking is going to be a threat to Airbnb.
Yeah, definitely. I think the service part may not be a very big issue. Eventually, it's just a good, beautiful flat with a reasonable price. right?
Yeah.
And of course, booking main business is still over at the hotel side, right?
Honestly speaking, if you're looking for a service, you will usually go for luxury hotel because where you get a top-notch kind of service. Yeah, but Airbnb is not in that kind of area, right? But it's just that they give us alternative accommodation where you may not be able to find on certain
I mean, they're still number one in this market.
Yeah, because when I always hear people about Airbnb, oh, you should go and take a look at Airbnb. If you go in a group, it's cheaper. So that's the mentality in the guests that they have. It's not the service that they're looking. It's the price sensitive guests that they're looking at.
Actually, usually when you get a kitchen in a hotel, it's very expensive. Usually, it's very high-end luxury. But for me, when I was in the US doing road trips, I like to go to these Airbnbs because I can do my laundry. One thing, and secondly, I can go buy groceries and then cook for everyone. It's just like
it's nice. I've done a lot of homestays. I think if you have a family or maybe two families, it's actually really nice. Compared to a hotel.
So in terms of competition, I think Booking is going to be a big threat to them, and second one is going to be the Google for travel, right? So they did mention this also in their prospectus that their organic search has been dropping ever since Google started to introduce Google Travel ads, right? So in order for them to appear on the Google search, they kind of have to continue to pay Google as their paid ads, performance ads. So this is likely going to grow again as we recover from COVID-19. They have to spend in order to get new leads into their platform.
I mean, I think Google is it's the same threat for Booking as well. Booking spends a lot of money advertising on Google because for us, if we want to search for something, we go to Google, right? So either when we search, the ads are going to be there and we're going to click on them. So Booking drives a lot of traffic through Google. That is one of their threats. And same for Airbnb, they will have to rely on Google as well. No, I had a look at the prospectus. They don't spend as much as Booking does on paid ads. They actually rely a lot more on organic traffic from Google, SEO, and direct traffic as well. So actually they spend less than Booking in terms of paid ads on Google actually. So I think that is a benefit for Airbnb because they're less reliant on Google in that sense. But Google is definitely also, I think, could be a long-term threat because what if they decide to go into this space themselves and become an online travel agent? Because everyone goes to Google anyway. So they have this section on the Google search where you can actually book directly through Google to the hotel or whatever. Then Booking and Airbnb or Expedia could all suffer for that.
And it's such a big market, right? It makes sense for them to do it.
It is a big market, and Google could do that. It's whether they want to include that into their business model. So that's the question that no one really knows at this point.
And of course, the biggest one actually is the pandemic. If there's another pandemic happening again next year, hopefully not, right? That will affect the entire travel industry, not just OTA or Airbnb, but also airlines and across many other industries.
So, I mean, that's the most immediate threat that we have. So we're not actually out of the pandemic yet. We're still recovering from it.
It's quite interesting that they chose this timing to do their listing.
Probably the news of the vaccine. They probably they already shelved the plans for almost, I think, maybe a year. So I think they had to get it going. But I think, I think
it's a good time for them to get additional liquidity,
actually,
right? Instead of borrowing more money.
Because I think recently a lot of IPOs is also on the pipeline, and a lot of IPO companies, they does raise a lot of money in the recent months. I think that spur them, that we should not miss out this chance.
So let's go straight into the IPO. So everything comes to the IPO is about valuation, right? Whether it's going to be a fair price for whatever price they're going to list at. So I don't think they've actually given an exact price, but I think there's a valuation that they put on the company, which is about what, 30 billion,
30 billion.
30 billion. So that's the valuation for the entire Airbnb. So tell us more. What do you think about the valuation? Do you think it's fair? What do you think about it?
So if you look at bookings, right? Bookings is about 15 billion in revenue. Let's talk about revenue.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID is about 15 billion, and their market cap right now is about 84 billion. And you look at Airbnb, is about 4.8 billion pre-COVID, right? So if you, based on the revenue multiples, that the difference between them, right, you divided.
For Booking is about 5 to 6 times, right? That was 6
So
times.
this is price to sales, right?
Price to sales,
yeah.
So Airbnb is pricing themselves at about
six times
of
as well.
their revenue. So pre-COVID. Again, they are trying to price themselves similar valuation in terms of price to sales compared to Booking. But you look at Booking, I think they are a lot more profitable. Okay, let's take COVID-19 out of this equation, right? I mean, Booking is making what 30% net margin. Airbnb is like losing money since inception. Of course, they are growing a lot faster. They are disrupting the market. But of course, if I look at term valuation, Booking is a lot safer as compared to Airbnb.
Okay, so what you're saying is they're essentially priced about the same
price about the same.
Same valuation, about 5 to 6 times
based on 30 billion.
Yeah, but Booking is more profitable. Is a bigger company. They have, I mean, Booking has caught up. Almost caught up to them in some way.
They have about 6.4 million listing in terms of alternative accommodation.
This is for Booking,
so comparatively with Airbnb, it's about
7.4.
Yeah, it's very close.
It's very close.
So it's anyway, Booking is really a big threat to them.
So so valuation wise, they're the same, but Booking is the higher quality company at this point, but there's more growth in Airbnb.
But Booking is also still growing at double digit.
Booking, but still growing. Booking is still growing. But just that possibly Airbnb could grow faster.
So one thing that's quite interesting is that Booking has everything that Airbnb wants to be, and they added one Airbnb segment to it, right? The alternative housing. But then Airbnb is like alternative housing, and they're trying to add many segments like what Booking. So it's a bit harder that way, I guess.
Okay. I think it's just the nature of the business. You have to. I mean, competition is business, right? So I think based on that, knowing this, the question is, would you invest in Airbnb's IPO? Assuming a valuation similar to Booking. So any one of you can share your thoughts on that.
For me, is 30 billion probably not.
Okay.
Right. 18 billion probably worth 1% of the bet.
Okay.
Right.
So for
that's
you, probably not. You want a lower valuation to consider it. Okay. What about either one of you guys?
For me, I'll just wait and see. I think it's too early to just quickly jump into it. Then their growth plans is also not solidified yet. At the same time, also, we do not know how long this pandemic will last, whether they will raise another round of equity, because maybe that might cause a dilution in the shares too. So I'll wait and see.
Well, I like Airbnb as a business model, scaling very fast, growing very fast. I don't like is that losing a lot of money. Probably IPO may have to give it a miss and then monitor them along the way.
Okay. So I think for me personally, I prefer Booking. So if I'm going to pay for the same price, I would rather go with the surer bet. Even though maybe I lose out on a little bit of growth, but I like the surer bet, and then I would. I'm a shareholder of Booking.
But of course, there's no right,
no recommendation, no right or wrong. You could actually invest in both if you want.
As an investor, you always want to bet on the safer one, right? If you want to bet on the riskier one, you have to be very small percentage.
I mean, some people like the risk.
Some people like.
You don't concentrate on the.
But okay. So I think that's our opinion on Airbnb. There's no recommendation here. We're just sharing our opinions and thoughts based on what we've done, our research on prospectus that we're reading. And of course, there's a lot more. This is just this is just the tip of the iceberg. We can't cover everything in like a 30-40 minute round table. But I hope that this gives you some things to look at if you want to check out Airbnb IPO yourself. Have a look at the prospectus, and when it does list, have a look at it yourself. So thank you so much for joining us at this roundtable discussion once again. It's been a good 30-40 minutes spending time with you guys. So again, thank you Rusmin, Victor, and Kenny. Thank you guys. My name is Adam. We're all from the Fifth Person. So thanks for watching this, and if you really liked it, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. We have many more roundtable discussions coming up. We're discussing IPOs or whatever news is going to hit the market. There's so many things, and you want to make sure the videos come to you.
And also do share with us the insights if you have any insights on Airbnb.
Maybe you worked in there before, you're in the travel industry. You can share with us your insights in the comment sections as well. So we'd love to hear from you. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.